On today's World Insight, a welcome change to Hong Kong's electoral system. That's HK Chief Executive CARRIE LAM in support of the policy decision, and she counts the ways why.
And to implement this very important principle is to bring Hong Kong back to the right track insofar as her political structure is concerned. And that is in line with the very important principle of one country, two systems.
And keeping the flame of patriotism alive in Hong Kong's leadership, former and current HK leaders weigh in on why these changes are badly needed.
Here is our host, Tian.
Hello and welcome to World Insight special program, Hong Kong Outlook. I'm Tian. The fourth session of the 13th National People's Congress, China's top legislature, wrapped up on Thursday. At this year's gathering, Chinese lawmakers adopted a decision on improving Hong Kong's electoral system. Hong Kong's election committee, which is responsible for nominating candidates for the chief executive and legislative council, will be expanded in size and given more power. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang said the decision would strengthen the one country, two systems framework. Hong Kong Chief Executive CARRIE LAM lost no time expressing her support, saying the policy fixed the loopholes in the existing electoral system. I spoke to Madam Chief Executive in an exclusive interview on the decision to have patriots governing Hong Kong. Let's listen in. And I'm joined with honor by CARRIE LAM, Chief Executive of Hong Kong SAR. Madam Chief Executive, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good to see you. I know you have very busy schedule during China's national political season. Did you watch the final voting results? 2,895 voted yes at the end of it. Did you watch it?
I watched it on TV news. I was very impressed and very touched because, after all, these 2,900 delegates were serving Hong Kong, right? Mm-hmm. They were passing a decision which will benefit Hong Kong. And to many of them, Hong Kong is still quite far away. And they may not have been to Hong Kong, but they realized the importance of this decision for the future of Hong Kong, and they gave us their approval. So I'm actually very gratified and very impressed.
Actually, you expressed after the voting, you want to express staunch support and sincere gratitude. Tell us why.
They sort of represent two special feelings that I have as a chief executive of the Hong Kong SAR. I have to indicate my very strong support for this decision because the purpose of this NPC decision is to improve the electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR to implement patriots administering Hong Kong. And to implement this very important principle is to bring Hong Kong back to the right track insofar as her political structure is concerned. And that is in line with the very important principle of one country, two systems. I feel very gratified, and I have to express my strong gratitude because one would say that as the chief executive of Hong Kong, if you saw all these problems, why shouldn't you yourself solve this problem? The question is Hong Kong could not on its own find a solution to this very difficult problem which lies in our political structure. Because political structure is really a central authorities matter. Mm-hmm. And if we were to do it on our own, it's just not possible.
But do you think your job will be easier after this, or will be actually quite challenging, at least for some period of time?
Tian, you have known me for a number of years. I'm
Yes.
not somebody who look for an easy job, but I am somebody who is very committed to the city I love. And I want to do things for this city. But in recent years, because of the problems that we have seen with the Legislative Council, with other political systems, we simply could not do many of the things that we wanted to do because there are very strong anti-mainland campaign in the Legislative Council among some of these members who simply could not fulfill the standards of patriots administering Hong Kong. I could look forward to a more fruitful and rewarding tenure to serve the people of Hong Kong, because much of that sort of problems will have been satisfactorily resolved.
But Madam Chief Executive, there have been a lot of discussions, if not disputes, about really what is the improvement of the electoral system be, the nature of it. Some say it is about diluting the democratically elected members of the Legislative Council.
Well, Hong Kong is a very free and diverse society. We welcome people with different political positions and different views about the best system to serve Hong Kong. And by the way, we are a capitalist system, whereas in the mainland of China, it's a socialist system. So there is absolutely no intention to undermine the system of Hong Kong and to sort of dilute this diversity and this freedoms in Hong Kong. The only objective of this exercise is to ensure that governance is firmly in the hands of those who love the country. Because it is only by being in the hands of those who love the country that we could ensure the full implementation of one country, two systems, which has been proven to be the best formula to ensure Hong Kong's long-term stability and prosperity. So there's no reason why somebody who has a stronger inclination towards the so-called democracy could contest in a future election if he or she could meet the standards of a patriot. And that is not asking a lot of things.
But Madam Chief Executive, may I just follow up on 2 points? First of all, when some suggest, well, there are 300 more being added into the overall board, it seems that things are getting much more complicated, and who knows where this is going? Your response?
No, that's actually quite the reverse. With the National People's Congress decision has enlarged the size of the election committee and expanded the number of seats in the Legislative Council. So it brings me back to that same question. If we have the same number of so-called pro-democratic persons in Hong Kong, as long as all these people are able to meet the standards of a patriot, then they now have more opportunities to take part in the election and to win the election.
Yeah. Since, Madam Chief Executive, the patriot, that word is the key word, let me ask you, if this has become the standard, there might be the tendency of competition among Legislative Council members and those election committee members, and maybe the candidates serving for future chief executive to show their patriotism.
Now, being a patriot, before you could contest in an election, in a way has been practiced in Hong Kong, because whenever somebody contests in an election in the nominating form, he or she has to sign a declaration that is under the Basic Law, Article 104, this somebody has to swear allegiance to the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and uphold the Basic Law. So by that, it does mean that he would have to be a patriot, okay? And in the past, there has been a mechanism for the Hong Kong authorities to disqualify candidates who are unable to meet those standards. And the case has also gone to the courts in Hong Kong, and the courts have certain rulings on what is going to be objectively considered as fulfilling those requirements. So I don't think one has to do more or less. You just have to be a patriot, complying with what is the normal expectation of somebody who is loyal and love the country, and that will be enough. But you have a very valid point. What about somebody who pretends to be patriotic at the time of the election, but once they have taken office, they will act in a way that is non-patriotic, that is undermining the state power or endangering national security? Now, in 2016, the National People's Congress Standing Committee has passed an interpretation of the article in the Basic Law that I have just referred to, that is Basic Law 104, which sets that this requirement of loving your country and swearing allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR is not just for the purpose of election. It is also the standard to govern the behavior of somebody who has been in office And if you fail, once you are in office, you behave in a way that bridges those declarations or oath that you have taken previously, then you will have to face the legal consequences. We now have a piece of local legislation which will be put before the Legislative Council for scrutiny, is to put in our local legislation the legal consequences of bridging the oath to swear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR. So the system is all there for us to put in place, this patriots administering Hong Kong.
But, Madam Chief Executive, will people be scared to voice their opinions? Will there still be different degrees of, views that are expressed in Hong Kong publicly? Will there be real public debate about the important policies regarding Hong Kong?
Well, we have heard the same fears and anxieties about 9 months ago when the National Security Law was made by the National People's Congress Standing Committee and implemented in Hong Kong. But now 9 months have passed, the law has been fully implemented, effectively implemented, and then the so-called fears and noises about the worries that there will be no freedom of speech have disappeared. So I would say that, yes, we will do our part to explain that this is all about improving the electoral system to implement patriot administering Hong Kong. It will not affect or undermine Hong Kong's people's rights and freedoms, but let time tell.
Okay.
And time will tell very quickly, just like the national security law. If you have a chance to come to Hong Kong, Tian, if you just read any newspapers, they are still expressing their views very freely. I'm still being attacked day in and day out in the Hong Kong newspapers. So that is a very good proof of that freedoms and rights are still alive, very much alive in Hong Kong.
Madam Chief Executive, you just illustrated very clearly your views about the latest improvement of Hong Kong electoral system. That's how you see it. But what about how others see it? We have heard from some countries, for example, US, UK, and some of the others, are condemning, criticizing, and having doubts about the latest development in Hong Kong and regarding this improvement. Now, what's your response to all of these words and noises?
Well, let me first say that these noises and voices represent only a fraction of the foreign countries. If one were to take the recent meeting at Geneva, the United Nations Human Rights Commission meeting, some 70 countries' representatives have spoken in support of our country's acts in enacting the national security law, and some also spoke in support of this electoral reform improvements because it only came out very recently. So I would say that some of those countries which have been criticizing and attacking us rather in a hostile manner are not seeing Hong Kong or the People's Republic of China's acts in a very objective manner.
What do you mean?
They are pretty biased and prejudiced and using their own standards to apply to us. But when the same thing happens in their country, they use another set of standards. This is what I call the double standards. If the current US administration could seriously condemn the siege of Capitol in Washington, D.C., how could they turn a blind eye to the blatant violence that has taken place in Hong Kong for almost a year? They were only suffering for a day, but we have been victimized for over a year. Our Legislative Council chamber has been destroyed far more extensively than what we have seen in Washington, D.C. So my advice is to the overseas government officials and politicians and think tanks, we only ask for fairness and objectivity in looking at things that are happening in Hong Kong. And for senior leaders, they should fully respect the international norm of non-interference into the internal affairs of another country.
Well, you might ask for that, but they might not pay attention, Madam Chief Executive. For example, you and some of the others have been sanctioned by certain countries. So one could expect that pressure could be even more in latest month. So what's your personal reaction, and how do you see it as the chief executive of Hong Kong?
Well, this sort of sanctions is totally unjustified, is extremely hostile, and again, it reflects very poorly on the particular country that imposes that sanction on us, because we as Hong Kong SAR officials of the People's Republic of China, we are defending our country. We are safeguarding national security for our own people and for the people of the People's Republic of China. Mm-hmm. So, well, what on earth have we done that will deserve this sort of sanctions against individuals? Including myself, there are a total of 12 Hong Kong SAR officials, and there are more mainland officials who have been sanctioned.
Right.
But every one of us, I have talked to every one of the other 11 colleagues, every one of us will say the same thing. We will not be threatened or intimidated by these sanctions against ourselves and our families. We will continue to do what is right for protecting our country and ensuring the stability and prosperity of Hong Kong.
But what about the interests of Hong Kong? I mean, as a financial center, Madam Chief Executive, that is the lifeline of Hong Kong. That is a free trade port, and it's also a financial center of Asia, and probably in the future, probably even on a larger scale. But if things get worse, what does it mean for Hong Kong, its potential?
Well, Hong Kong's international financial center status has not been shaken at all in the last 2 years. Whether it is the violence, the riots, and or the national security law, or even the COVID-19, that shows that our financial systems are very robust. We have a very good IPO last year, which was the world's #2 in terms of public funds raised. We have broken the record in terms of daily turnover in our stock market. And my colleagues in the Hong Kong exchanges were already saying that 2021 is going to be a very good year for Hong Kong's IPO as well. And we have seen no capital outflow. We have seen a lot of money coming in. People are now very excited about the enhanced connectivity between the Hong Kong capital markets and the mainland capital markets. Right. And a lot of companies are still finding ways to invest in the Greater Bay Area and so on. So I certainly would not say that improving the electoral system in Hong Kong will change all those strengths of our international financial center. Quite on the contrary, I would think that they will help, because for business people, the first thing they want to see in a place they invest is stability. And with an electoral system which is going to return candidates who are anti-China, who may even subvert the state power, who could disrupt electoral proceedings, who could refuse to pass legislation which are pro-business and making our Hong Kong financial center more attractive. It's not going to be attractive to these potential investors. Yeah. But now, especially after the national security law and with the completion of this exercise to improve the electoral system, I'm sure the business environment will be even better.
I've been hearing from quite a number of high-tech companies here on the mainland seeking grand IPOs, likely in Hong Kong in this year or the coming year. A few billion, that's what we are talking about, even to begin with. But, you know, Madam Chief Executive, earlier there were a lot of concerns about the stability in Hong Kong and the inefficiency of the running of the government as a result of the political chaos and the filibuster within the Legislative Council. Now, according to the law, Madam Chief Executive, that has been cleared with the latest improvement. So now it's really on the shoulder of the Hong Kong SAR government to show your own color and to demonstrate your capabilities. Madam Chief Executive, one of the things people have been talking about is about housing, public housing. That's one of those root problems, as many say, about Hong Kong over the decades. Now, you have 154,000 families who are waiting for public housing, and a lot of them have to wait 5.7 years. That's about twice as much time as earlier pledged. Madam Chief Executive, the thing is their life going to be improved as a result of the latest change and improvement of policy?
Well, I certainly hope so, but even without these improvements to the electoral system, I and my government, we have admitted that this is an area that we need to do much better. That's why in the last 3.5 years in this term of government, we have really spared no effort in finding land to build flats for our people. And I have to say that in my policy address last November, I announced that for the first time, we managed to find all the land to build the required number of public housing, which is about 313,000 units within the next 10-year period. Because after a long period of this dragging and this internal rift and argument, what we are doing is a lot of catching up. And I would say that with a more cooperative legislative council, which is willing to sit down with us to look at the options instead of just politicizing every proposal to form land that the government puts to the legislative council, we will have a chance to accelerate the land production efforts and produce more land, particularly with my sort of vision for reclaiming land from artificial islands east of the Lantau Island. That will give us over 1,000 hectares of land to build more flats for the people of Hong Kong. But we will work very hard on that, I can assure you.
All right, then. We'll see. Last question, very briefly from you. We have already seen a very sketchy timetable of how the elections are likely to take place, election committee, legislative council, and eventually, of course, a chief executive. To you personally, and also serving as the chief executive of Hong Kong, how do you see this timetable? How are they likely to be efficiently implemented, Madam Chief Executive?
Well, the timetable definitely has to be followed through and implemented, because between now and next March, that is a total of 12 months, we need to complete effectively and smoothly 3 sets of elections. So the election committee, after it has been expanded to 1,500, and then the Legislative Council, after it has been expanded to 90 seats, and then the Chief Executive election, because my term is coming to an end next June, and we need to have a Chief Executive for the next term by around March this year. So there will be 3 sets of elections that we need to conduct, and prior to that, we need to wait for the National People's Congress Standing Committee to amend Annex 1 and Annex 2, setting out the detailed arrangements. And then we have to translate those detailed arrangements into local legislation. And there are some 20 pieces of local legislation that we need to amend. So it's all compressed into a very tight timetable, about 12 months. But I have confidence that we will be able to meet that target.
Your term has been characterized by enormous amount of work, that is for sure. CARRIE LAM, Chief Executive of Hong Kong SAR, thank you so much, Madam Chief Executive.
Not at all. It's a pleasure talking to you.